Hi, everybody. Welcome to Drag Racing's Golden Era. My name is Randy. I'm the editor-in-chief here and also the administrator of the page. Tonight we bring you another installment of Legends of the Sport featuring Joe Amato. When I first sat down to try and write the story of Joe Amato and do my research, look at videos and pictures, there were two things that became quite clear right away. First, this story is very big, and in order to tell it would have taken me a month to try and just write the script for it. The second thing that occurred to me was that this really isn't a drag racing story so much as it's a story of American success story. Joe is one of those special brand of Americans that started with humble roots and achieved success that is so unique to the American saga. With mainly hard work and tenacity, Joe amassed not only a string of wins in a top fuel car that are unrivaled, but he also built a performance auto parts company that is known from coast to coast. So after listening to the interview that I did with Joe about a week and a half ago, I listened to it about 5-6 times. I decided that Joe doesn't need any help from me with any narration to try and tell the story. So tonight, instead of having a video article, what you're going to see is just a conversation between Joe and I. And I add a little bit of production value in with some pictures and some videos. But this is mainly just a conversation with Joe about Joe and what his life was like. I began the conversation with him by asking him what that early period in his life was really like. And that's where the interview starts off. So here he is, Joe.
When I was 11 years old, my dad opened a speed shop. Now here's a guy who drove a 49 Hudson, never put a spark plug in or changed oil in his life, didn't even know anything about cars, but he was an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And he was running a deli, and he saw these kids, local kids, going to New Jersey from Pennsylvania to buy bubble skirts, light pipes, Continental kits, all that kind of racing stuff. So he got the idea to open a speed shop. So he went to New Jersey to a place and became a dealer for them, and he opened a speed shop. And I was hanging around there since he opened it at 11. And then I really learned a lot about cars, and I used to go to hitchhike down after school. It's about 5 miles from where I lived. Went to school, and I hitchhiked down. Then when I was 15, I got a motor scooter and rode down illegally because I didn't have a driver's license, but I did that. But then, by the time I'm 13, we're selling go-karts. I'm assembling the go-karts, 13 years old. They'd come in, I'd put the motors on them and get them going. So, I started learning about cars, selling speed shop, racing stuff. Some of the guys are hanging around there at 14, 15 years. I got to go to the U.S. Nationals, and that was back in early days of, I saw Garlett's race. I said, I want to do that someday. And my brain was already locked in and becoming a drag racer, And then the minute I was 16, I bought a 53 Ford, and I started, it was a flathead. I put a tack on it, and I modified the distributor, did a little bit of work on it, and it would only go to 4,000. I made it go to 5,000. So I thought I was a rocket scientist, with me. And there was like 3 or 4 guys that they went to their drag races, and I kind of bummed along with them the first time I went to I did some local races, the local tracks. That was back when there was 8 miles and quarter miles on airports, and in those days it wasn't as like it is now, the big tracks.
What was the closest major track to you? Was it Maple Grove?
Well, Maple Grove was 2 hours south, and Englishtown, New Jersey was 2 hours the other way.
Okay.
In my father's garage behind the house, we had a little 2-car garage in an alley, and I started playing with cars, and I learned how to weld. I was welding lake pipes on, cutouts. I was doing whatever in a little 2-car garage with a coal stove, and I had a 53 Ford that I fooled around with. I customized it and all. And then I had a 57 Pontiac, and that was a V8. I put a gear in it, and everybody couldn't understand why I could beat them, but I put like a 370 here instead of a 323, or So that made a big difference in it. But I didn't tell nobody that, you know. You have to keep your secrets.
You were friends with Tim Richards going way back, weren't you? Did you already know him at this point or not?
Maybe when I was 19, and I used to go. There was a place in Scranton called the Villa Capri, and guys used to go up there and hang around at night with cars. And then there was at the top of the hill from there was a quarter-mile drag strip on the highway. It was a flat piece, and you could have good visibility from both ends. So we used to go up there late at night and race on the street. It was back when street racing, and guys used to come. I mean, guys used to tow cars there sometimes. Guy bring in a 40 Chevy with a Buick in it or something like that, a 53 Henry J with a blown Chrysler in it. I mean, and we'd race them we'd park them at K's and at the Villa Capri, and everybody would go up the hill at 1 o'clock, 12 in the morning when there's no cops around, and we'd race. And it was a lot of fun in those days doing that kind of stuff. But you know, people I guess still do it today, but not to the extent of how it was back in the old days.
Yeah, I don't know that much about East Coast up there, you know, the racing scene that was going on, but I know out on the West Coast it was street racing like crazy out there. You know, there's even stories of people like John Peters taking the freight train out on the streets of Culver City and doing burnouts down the main street.
Wow, yeah, I've heard things like that, you know.
It was wild stuff.
Well, that's where I met Tim Richards. He was hanging around then, and another guy named Ray Lebowski. He used to drive a '56 Plymouth. They called him Taxi because his car looked like a taxi cab. but Timmy was into the Chrysler stuff. He was doing Plymouth wedges and stuff, and he started fooling around playing with the transmissions, and he ended up making a neutral start Chrysler for the wedges and the Hemis, where you could neutral start it and stick it into gear and it would work. Box and machining them because he worked night shift, so he had lots of freedom to do what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
So then I started racing, and I was running a supercharged 40 Chevy, and I needed pistons machine and stuff. So he started doing some stuff for me, and you know, we kind of got to know each other. And then it was an altered, modified car. I used it for different. Before that, I had an altered. I went through a ton of cars in my day. Huh. Then I had like an altered, a Fiat, a 48 Fiat with a Linwood chassis. The local guy there, Wilkes-Barre, made me a chassis, and I hand built the trailer in one of my speed shops because at that point I got up to, when I quit school when I was 16, because my dad got sick. I'm kind of jumping around here with the story. Yeah, okay. My dad got sick when I was 16, and I quit school to run the speed shop. And because the two guys that were working for us, they left open a gas station. So it was either that or to get rid of the store and probably close it because it was a small business.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't really have the money to do anything. So I was the income of the family. And I made it work.
What was the name of that shop, speed shop?
That was A&A Speed Shop in Music, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
That's where it started. A little hole-in-the-wall speed shop in Keystone Automotive Warehouse. We opened that to be like a wholesale distributor selling to other speed shops. And that became a giant business. And we ran that up to like 1,100 employees, and we were the largest performance warehouse in the country at the time, delivering with our own trucks. We ended up with our own fleet of trucks delivering next day with tractor trailers, with drop terminals, and it was a whole crazy thing, you know.
And this is for all the people that are on the page and stuff. The Keystone that we saw on the side of your car all those years is your company, Keystone, right?
Yeah, Keystone Automotive Warehouse. Yeah. I used the company to dig up sponsors because, you know, I did so much business. If somebody wanted to be in my warehouse, they had to like be on the car. Yeah. Sponsors and great associations with people. But the little subsidiary decal beside the major allowed me to have enough money to race the right way and give Tim Richards, who ended up, you know, we went to be friends. I was fooling around, and he was racing he had a bunch of Chrysler cars, Hemi cars and wedge cars, and one of them Superbirds with the big wing on the back, I think.
Yeah.
He had a couple of them, and he was even sponsored by I believe it was Carl Gould Chrysler up in Binghamton one time for a couple of years. So I built an alcohol funny car. It was actually started out in those days. They were a funny car. They were injected. They weren't supercharged.
Okay.
But I built it as an injected car. And by the time I got the car built, the class was changing over to superchargers. So I ran it for a couple of races, just fooling around with the A funny car. And we put a supercharger right on it and went right and jumped right in. In fact, the shirt I'm wearing here is one of my funny cars. It says Keystone Automotive, but it's got my first one of my alcohol funny cars on it.
Okay.
Which I made some shirts. That's just collector items to give to my friends. It's like a blast from the past, you know.
What year did you start running the blown funny car?
In the 70s.
Okay.
Probably early 70s, I'm guessing. You go. But the nice part, the fun part with that was I was able to go on a Wednesday night to Englishtown and to be a 8-car, 16-car alcohol funny car show booked in. And they'd give us money. You'd run 2 runs, and the fast 2 would come back for the bigger money, winner, runner-up. So that was always fun to do. And then we ended up running all over the East Coast, traveling, driving, working on the car at night, you know. And Tim Richards jumped in to help me as my crew chief when we started that.
Yeah.
So we went round and round and back and forth, and we had a good run with that. That was a lot of fun. And we ended up going to some national events, running the division points meets. I won 2 or 3 national events as an alcohol funny car. I think I won in Canada, the first national event I ever won with that.
Okay.
So then we went to in the U.S. Now we didn't do all the races because I was still.
What was the decision when you finally decided let's go top fuel? I mean, how'd you make that decision?
Well, I did the alcohol for quite a while, and then I said we want to step up, so we weren't sure what to do. So we went down and talked to Walt Weenie again, and who was building motors and stuff.
Yeah.
And he said he could give us a combination to start with, you know, to jump into top fuel. So we built the top fuel car in the 82, that was. Yeah. And we just got it running. In 83, we you know, made the full tour. And the 84, we won our first championship. So, you know, Timmy really took to the fuel nitro racing like a duck comes to water. He was really all over it, and his expertise and his ability to build a super stock motor that would be exactly compression and everything to match, carried that over into a fuel motor. You know, he just built with such precision that, and then he learned how to tune the car, which was a hard time. That was prior to all the computers and all the things they have today, which make it easier, even though they're more complex because they have so many controls on them.
So is that a hard progression to make, to go from an alcohol car to a fuel car? Is there a lot of difference there between the 2 engines?
Not a lot. It just comes down to it has so much more horsepower. Yeah. It's easy to smoke the tires. Yeah. So you're controlling, you know, 10,000 horsepower compared to, you know, 2,000 or some number. So you really couldn't smoke the tires that easy with an alcohol car if you were half close, because the clutches weren't the same. But then they had 3, 4, 5 disc clutches, and all the timers and everything on the funny cars, the fuel cars. It was a whole different game. So you had to learn that. That was the hardest part, I think, learning how to, you know, not beat yourself. If you had too much power, you could overpower the track. Yeah.
You know, it's funny. You said 82, and I have a memory of a race from 82 where you were up against Shirley Muldowney, and she'd got her car started and did a full burnout, and you guys were struggling to get that car started. I don't know what the issue was, and she was already back up into the lane getting ready to stage the car before you guys finally fired up. And if I remember right, Buster Couch basically waved your whole crew away and made you get up there and stage immediately, and you went up and smoked. That's the only memory I have of you from 80. I think that was 82 that happened.
It might have been, yeah. We were still rookies then. We were just getting going. It didn't come out till late that year, just to run a couple of races at the end, you know. But yeah, I used to like racing Shirley or Don Garlos because they were my heroes growing up, you know.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I was the guy in the lane behind Shirley in a qualifying run in Montreal when she crashed at that time they'd passed the finish line. There weren't guardrails. There was a ditch full of rocks.
Yeah.
So Shirley's lucky to be alive because she went in that ditch head first with the car, and the car came apart, and she ended up, city block away in a dirt field, and the motor ended up somewhere else. And, she's lucky. And I was the next guy to run in the car. So they cleaned the mess up, and then it was my turn. And
that's something I just thought of. You never had a major crash in your entire career, did you?
No, I'm the only guy you probably could say that raced as much as I did, won as much of championships, whatever you want to say, but raced down the track, a lot of rounds.
Yeah.
And I was never on my head. I don't think you can talk to Selzy or Bernstein or any of those guys. I mean, they crash once a year on an almost regular basis. I was really close a lot of times, but I used to run a funny car parachute on my dragster,
okay,
which was bigger, and it hit harder. And so many times I was in the air with the wing broke or something where the car is like ready to start doing the 360, and I got the parachute out in time and it pulled it back.
Wow.
And I just walked away, and the front end falls off, A-frame, the front end's on fire. I didn't have the helmet thing. This is in Baton Rouge one time. It was a night where it was really, the windshield was, the goggle was fogging up. So I flipped the goggle open a half inch or an inch. I take off, I'm going down the track, and the A-frame on the front breaks. Now I'm at the finish line. I win the race, but there's sparks going like crazy off the front end. I'm trying to keep it off the walls because I know I won the race. The sparks go in the fuel tank, which is out in front, and the fuel tank goes into fire.
Wow.
So now I got a fire come underneath the car, and I got sparks going in my face, and I'm trying to figure why. When it all went down, the shield flipped up. Now I got an open shield, sparks in my face. I'm trying to stop the car and not wreck it so I know I can fix it. Or, all that goes through your mind real fast. But I got the car stopped, I got out, and they put the fire out, and it wasn't bad, and we got to fix the car. But the only thing I could think of was, getting the car stopped and winning the race. But that's just dumb stuff that happens to you. But
here's one of these curiosity questions I've always had. Of course, I've never driven a top fuel dragster. As you guys went faster and I mean, when you started out in '82, what were you guys running? 240?
The speed record in '82 was probably 240, because in '84 it was 256 when I showed up in Gainesville with the tall wing that was way high, and people used to run the wing like a spoiler with a big inversion.
Yep.
And had a real lot of drag, but it put a lot of force on the back of the tires and kept the tires planted. Well, Timmy Richards with a guy named Eldon Rasmussen from Indianapolis, who was a big IndyCar guy. He did a lot of IndyCar work. Between the two of them, they conspired to come up with the idea that we can reform the dragster wing. We would put it up real high and lay it back, and it would work like a lever. Because lever, the more you pull it back, the more leverage it has. Well, they thought the same principle with a wing. So they put the wing up real high, laid it back, and made a little bit of a different wing than everybody was using, and put it on the car flat, and had big spill plates on it. And we went out and tested it. First run down the track, it went faster than the record. And like that weekend, I think I brought the record up to 262.39. I was just looking at the record charts. And the next race, I got it to 264. So I raised the record up like crazy over like just because of the wing.
I clearly remember that race in 84 because it was you and Bernstein, both of you. Bernstein comes out with that Ford Temple body car that was all wind tunnel tested.
I call it the Batmobile.
Yeah, and then you come out, and I'll never forget Steve Evans saying, with the monstrosity hanging off the back of your car. I clearly remember him saying that. And first you went 256, and then 260, and then 262. And it was I remember that race. It was a heck of a race. And Bernstein,
I think Bernstein came and ran 260 with his funny car.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, we both set the record, the 260 with the two classes at the same weekend. I'll never forget that.
I wanted to ask you about Dick Lahaye. In '87, it was. I remember, who was it? Larry Dixon, I think, is the first guy I ever heard call it the Dick and Joe show, with you and you and Lahaye in '87, where he finished first at the end of the season and you finished second, but it was a battle all season long. Were you guys friends through '87? I mean, were you friends, or was it really a tough?
Yeah. I think didn't I won in '88 and '84, so I didn't win '87. So maybe he won '87. Yeah, the Dicko was it was funny with Dick and his daughter Kim. As it turns out, Kim is married to Kim Richards.
Yeah,
married to Tim right now. When I first came out with the wing, I'll never forget. The NHRA made a rule it could only be so high. So I remember we'd be in the staging lanes, and Dick would be walking over, and he'd be tending, he's stretching, and he'd stick his arm straight up like he's measuring my wing. He thinks we're cheating. So we used to bust his chops all the time. Don't be measuring our wing. We were friendly like that, And we raced, we wanted to beat each other, but we were friendly, to a point where we were, two guys working to try and have fun and win. But Dick was a good guy. He was a class guy.
Something I remember about Dick, and this is just, I'm thinking way back now. I remember Dick there were times where he used to take his time getting up there and staging. And I never knew if that was on purpose or what the deal was with him. But I remember a few times where Buster Couch is pointing his finger at him.
Yeah, Dick, the different guys had idiosyncrasies. The hardest thing when they're doing that kind of stuff, because you know who you're playing with, what you're dealing with, and you try and adjust accordingly so you don't get hung out to dry and have your tank low, or change your timing off on everything, because you have a sequence that your car is running by, and if you change it to follow their sequence, and then you get in trouble, But you never want to. I'm always of the believer you don't want to try and mess around the starting line, because that's only get you in more trouble than do you any good, You try and win the race by being a smart guy up there. I think you lose more than you'll win. Just go do your job, get off first, and don't worry about it. Let the car perform.
Yeah, and I remember Scott Jeffrey on doing a burn down with Warren Johnson one time. He was being cute, and if I remember right, Buster Couch actually threw both of them out of the lanes, made him shut down and restart, and Jeffrey on playing games actually ended up losing that race.
Yeah, it happens a lot of times. Guys that are messing around trying to mess with the guy's head, they're the ones that mess themselves up doing it.
I have to ask you about Tim Richards. When he left, what was the reason why you guys parted ways? Was it just time?
Well, it was bad timing no, we were doing good, but I was I was obsessed with racing and winning, and he was too, to a point, but he was going through a divorce at the time, and that had him a little bit, and he was going out with Kim Lahaye at the time. He was getting divorced, and we raced at Indianapolis, and we were leading the points, believe it or not, and we lost there, I want to say first round, and I wasn't happy. I wanted to stay and test. And he didn't want to test. He was planning to go on vacation somewhere for a weekend or something. That was the dumbest thing I ever did in my life, probably. And, getting rid of him. And probably he would have had he had a good career after me. He won, he won champion. He won things. But I think the two of us together would have won a lot more, because we already had a lot going on in the way of, the charisma between the two of us, and everything was a good combination. But until I got divorced myself 5 years later, I didn't realize how that messes you up mentally, and your brain is in a different part of the world than you normally are, So, like I said, I'll admit that today. I've told them that many times, that us parting ways for the two of us, we both probably could have been like John Forrest and Austin Coyle as far as the win record. We won the championships, but there would have been could have been a lot more to it was what it was. In life, sometimes looking back, you can always figure out what you did right and what you did wrong, and try and adjust it, but it's never that easy.
Yeah. Who came in right after? Was it Jimmy Prock that came in?
No, I think I had some of my guys that worked on the team take over and do it for a while.
Okay.
And Jim Walsh and the guys like that. And we had Jim Brissett, I think, might have come in and helped us for a while there. We kind of did it ourselves for a while, and then Jimmy Prock became available, and he was just getting going. He was working with Corey, and they didn't have a big budget or money, so I hired him, and he really learned quick. He was already a rocket scientist, but he always swings through the fences, and he still does to this day at the right time.
Yeah.
He gets more low ETs and top speed than most people because he's got the mind to figure out how to make it go, you know?
Yeah. As things went through the, the 80s and into the 90s, you could see the sponsorship change and, overall with everybody, sponsorship started to take a front seat on the cars. And did the sport begin to really change through the 90s? I mean, it appeared from the outside, from a layman's point of view, looking in, that it was really changing throughout the 90s.
You say changing for the better or for the worse, in your opinion?
I still think the 90s were pretty good, and up to, the early 2000s, when Dixon was racing, I still, and Schumacher's kid, I still think the racing was pretty good then yet. But
yeah, the racing was good. The sponsor money was there, but it seems like, I don't know, after Winston left, it took a turn, not up. It stayed status quo for a long time. And it was good, but then eventually the problem was the price kept going up what guys were spending to race. In the cost of what it was costing and how much money you could get on the sponsors. So it became harder and harder to get enough sponsor money to not lose money racing. So that was a serious thing, I think. And even to this day, motorsports in general, not just drag racing, they're all struggling to get enough money to pay the bills. Because even like NASCAR's attendance is down, and they made the racing, as far as I'm concerned, way too confusing. I can't believe they're they got it way complicated. And this, I think some of their audience is hurting because they outpriced the tickets at the time when people were going. When the recession came in 2008, 27, that people never went back.
Yeah.
Hotels were gouging. You'd pay a $99 budget. You'd pay $250 on a race weekend, minimum 3 nights. All that came back to bite everybody on the butt because the people never came back to those high price tickets. They learned to either watch it on TV or don't watch it at all. And,
well, I understand that, but there's still nothing like being at a, an event where there's top fuel cars running.
No, that's the A ticket.
But I think the unfortunate part about even the way it's set up now is you'll never have another situation like you did in '90 with you and Ormsby. I don't even think that can happen anymore, can it?
Yeah, I think it can. I think it can. There've been some. Look at what Schumacher made the run that one year to set the record and win the championship. I mean, there's been some pretty spectacular winner take all. Well, that was the one right there. What Schumacher won against Lahaye.
Yeah.
Not Lahaye, against Doug Coletta. I think he took the championship off Coletta. Remember, Coletta went out early and he had to win the race and set the record.
Yes, I do remember that.
Championship. Yeah, that was. I mean, that kind of stuff goes on. I mean, but the race is probably competitive, but the problem is you have all these multi-car teams. I mean, there's 3 guys that own the sport, if you want to call it.
Yeah.
And they're all not kids. So you have to look at what's going to happen when these gentlemen get a little bit older, and who knows if they have somebody to fill their shoes, and where that's going to go.
Like I said to you when we talked on the phone, I know everything moves forward. You can't go backwards.
So this next year is going to be, interesting. It's going to be interesting to see. NHRA cut the purses way back. I mean, I don't know. It's going to be tough to scale back up.
I've got a fan question here for you. A guy by the name of Darren Williams at Hot Rod Entertainment. How intense was the rivalry between you and Gary Ormsby in '89 and '90, and how did you prepare for that final race at Pomona for the championship?
Well, we had a great rivalry going. I mean, beside myself against Gary, it was a crew chief against crew chief too. I mean, Lee Beard and Tim Richards, they were both trying to beat each other up and excel, and me and Ormsby were just trying to drive the cars without, messing up. And it was a real great rivalry. We were all trying to do stuff, make the cars slippery and faster and give us an edge. And the winner take all last round, that was you're just trying to stay focused. And sometimes it's easy to get distracted, but you don't want to get ahead of yourself. You just go out there and try because you have a good car.
Yeah.
And Tim gave me, I think I set low ET of the weekend on that last run we won the race. But And as we were, lucky or unlucky, Orangeby ended up smoking the tires because they knew we had a fast car. So when you have a fast car, you just have to be smart enough to drive it and not mess up, And sometimes it's easier said than done. You can't let your brain get in gear, and you just got to go up there and take a lot of deep breaths and just go up there and do your job. Just pretend it's only like a regular little single match race. Don't try and make it bigger than it is. That's when, if you start believing your own press clipping, that's when you get in trouble.
I grew up near Union Grove, Wisconsin, Great Lakes Dragaway. I don't know if you ever raced at that track, but they used to have these iconic events, and we used to have match races up there all the time in the late 70s and into the 80s. When did match racing really sort of go away?
Well, it got away when it got expensive and they couldn't afford to buy the drivers in to get enough purse. I mean, there were still some guys that were doing it cheap down low, but it got to be so expensive to run a car, you couldn't get enough money on the purse to make it worthwhile, And so that's when it kind of dried up,
I've got another fan question here. And of course, this one's from acquaintance of yours and mine, John Toll. He actually asked like 7 questions. I had to pick the 2 best for you to answer. First, what was your most valued win in a Top Fuel car?
Well, the funny part is, I'd have to say the one that was more rewarding was at the end of my career when I won the 1989, I believe. No, 99. The first year I won in Reading, Pennsylvania, after 14 years of trying to win the race, 2 or 3 times runner-up. And I always had like 1,000 customers from Keystone Automotive. We used to sponsor a big party there. 500 of my friends, my family, everybody was there in the world, and I couldn't win that race. I had the monkey on my back forever. And finally, we won that race, and we won it number 49 in my career. We backed it up the next year, and we won in 2000, my 50th career win. So that was like probably the first time I won that race. I just was so rewarding because I did it in front of the hometown crowd and all that. You always go back to your first win, but the winning after all those years and not being able to knock that one out of the box, I think that was probably the most fulfilling because there's so much pressure to succeed.
Who did you worry most about racing?
You mean as far as the competitor goes?
Yeah.
Well, the funny part, I raced so long, some of them changed as time went through. Like some guys would be hot for a couple of years and then they'd fade. But guys like Lahaye and Orangeby and Bernstein. And then when I was lucky enough to race Carlos a little bit, that was something I always relished. And beating Big Daddy was something that was, or Shirley, because they were the legends growing up. They're the ones you looked up to. And you get at a track and you're alongside a Big Daddy. Well, he's the man. Well, you have to change your chip in your brain to say, well, I can beat Big Daddy. And one time we were racing in, I think it might have been Pomona, and my car did a wheel stand. But I had it up like 3 feet, long time. And he saw me because I was ahead of him just a little bit. And he saw the wheels up and he kept waiting for something to happen. Well, the wheels I never flipped over. The wheels finally went down, some smoke off the wheels. We get down the track. And he blows up and I beat him. So we get down the end and he was kind of hollering at me because I could have crashed. I should have shut it off because what do you drive with the wheels that high? What are you, nuts? But you're on adrenaline. You're just hoping that if it goes up a little higher, you have enough brains to grab the brake hard enough and not crash. But I beat him like that. Another time I was racing him in the Big Bud shootout. I think it was the Big Bud or the Mr. Gaskin one for like $25,000. And I beat him on a hole shot in the final of that race. And I'll never forget, I had a picture a photographer bought me for the next year, and it showed us at the finish line. So I took it over to him. I had him sign the picture. And he put on the picture from Big Daddy to Joe Amato, I owe you one. The next time I raced him, he beat me on a hole shot in a race. So I think, so that's karma, but it was always, racing the legends was a big thing. And then when Prudhomme came into Top Fuel and Bernstein from Funny Car, that was always the guys you wanted to race. So Bernstein was always me and him always went at it pretty hard. He was always a threat, and he always had, Dale Armstrong car. He was the guy, and we used to go at it. In fact, when Tim Richards left me that year, I was in the U.S. Nationals, and Bernstein was second the points, and I think he thought that he was going to be able to pull it off, and somehow that was '93, I believe.
Yeah.
Somehow Doug Herbert came to my rescue there because he was good buddies with McEwen.
Yeah.
And McEwen kind of put that deal together. So that's why I always was good buddies with McEwen. He always had my back. He was like the West Coast guy, and he always kind of helped me out. I used to spend a lot of time in California, and there was like a whole bunch of guys used to go on Monday after the race to go to lunch, and they called it the agony of defeat lunch. So the guys that went there, if you were lucky enough to be the winner that weekend, you were the king tut. But there were more guys there that lost, that they had the agony of defeat. So it used to be a lot of ball busting there weekend at those races, Yeah, but that was a California thing, But that's where drag racing really started.
Did you ever spend much time racing out in California, like OCIR or any of those places?
When I had my alcohol, when I was racing, I mentioned before, I was racing alcohol funny car and racing in pro comp. But then alcohol dragsters became the car to have because they were running them side by side, and it was more consistent with a funny car.
Yeah,
a dragster than a funny car. So I built an alcohol dragster. So I went from alcohol funny car for like many years. I switched over to an alcohol dragster, I did that. So I actually went out to California to run the Winter Nationals, and I went to Gasoline Alley and met some people there. I met Dale Armstrong there for the first time when I was running pro comp, and that was kind of interesting. And when I had the business, I used to go to California, maybe not racing, but I was out there. So we used to have SEMA was out there, and there was a Performance Warehouse Association used to have meetings out there. A lot of my vendors were out there. So I remember I was at Orange County Raceway, and Prudhomme had an unbelievable fire at the finish line. I mean, big engulfed and flame deal, and he walked away, but burned everything to the ground. I mean, you remember some of the dumb things you see.
That we had here was a guy by the name of Dick Weaver asked, "What did you think of OCIR as a track of running on it?"
Oh, I thought it was that was back in the good old days.
Yeah,
back when you can get a 32 car funny car field, and was that was I'm so glad I was around through that era. I almost wish I was a little younger when I started, because I kind of got a little older, and it was already going by a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe if I was started 5 years earlier, I could have even been more involved on the West Coast motive like Carlos was. But then I'd be older today, so I wouldn't want that.
Back now. So another fan question here, a guy by the name of Ken Hayes, who used to drag race motorcycles, I think down in Beach Bend. Was there ever a time when you thought about just walking away from all of it?
No, sometimes when you have a bad weekend, when you mess up as a driver, or you don't qualify to race or something like that. I remember one time all winter we're getting everything ready. We went to Pomona, and we didn't qualify Pomona. Well, that's very frustrating. It's easy to lose your interest in a way. But we went out. We found a little track in Arizona, and we went there and we tested all week with Tim Richards and the crew and all, and we do what we had to do. We go to Phoenix the next week and win the race. So I mean, that's what makes you a champion. You have to have the perseverance and the willingness to work and do what it takes to get the job done. And that separates the men from the boys. A lot of people are, they're either quitters, or they don't know how to dig up the money, or that's the hardest thing in racing, to dig up the money.
Yeah.
Motorsports. So I was lucky that, I was in the right place. I had a good business that helped enable me to meet the right people to be able to get money. But it's still not that easy. You still got to work at it, believe me. Just even today, look at Schumacher, how many teams he comes up with, how many sponsors he finds, but it's a constant grind for him. I'm buddies with him, and he's constantly working. He'll have Leah's car with a different sponsor for 3 races, and then somebody else for 3 more. And it's a constant grind to dig up the money and make it happen, But that's what you got to do if you want to be successful.
Here's a good question for you. One of our followers, Bill Laughlin, asks, who was the favorite driver that you played golf with? I know you were an avid golfer. I remember you talking about it quite a bit back in the day.
It would probably be Bernstein, but Selzy played back in the day. But Bernstein was probably the guy that I played with the most. And what was really good, when Winston was on the team running the sponsorship, they were doing the Virginia Slims golf tour. So they had connections all over the country. So we would go anywhere, and they could get us on a golf course. And then they figured it out. Well, we'll bring some customers around, and we have some good drivers out there. So we're playing with their customers on a Wednesday before a race or a Monday after the race. And I remember Autolite used to have a big function up at Sonoma in California, up by the side of San Francisco. The Monday after Sonoma, the golfers like myself and whoever was an Autolite race car guy with their spark plugs and filters, and I was real good friends with them because I was a big customer of Autolite, start there through my business. And also I was a big sponsor there. They sponsored me. So we used to invite us all down. We go to Pebble Beach, stay at the inn at Pebble Beach, rut roll up top shelf. And then they put us out for a couple of days and play golf with their customers for free. That's part of our service contract. So that wasn't too shabby, that kind of an assignment, Go hang out at Pebble Beach, eat like a king, play golf on Pebble Beach, and go home, And the same thing, we went down to Greensboro, down that way. There's all the good golf courses down there. So I played a lot of good golf courses around the country on Pebble, on Winston or with Winston,
Bernstein, a good golfer?
Yeah, Bernstein was good. He's a good golfer. He's obsessed with it. He probably more than me in a way. I mean, anytime new equipment came out, he was the first guy to have it in his bag. He always constantly had new drivers he was trying and playing with. I was just a little more laid back on it, because I didn't start golf until I was 45 years old. Never hit a golf ball in my life. I used to play tennis all my life in younger days and things like that. But I always thought golf was a stupid game. Yeah, but at the time, I didn't have any need or reason to do it. Now I'm glad I play because, when you're in Florida, it takes up the day. You go play, you have fun, and passing the day, and you're constantly trying to do better. It's a constant grind.
I gave up golfing myself because I got tired of being angry every Saturday morning.
Yeah, it get you frustrating.
In '84, when you guys came out with that wing, what you already said that it was part of IndyCar technology. What was the genesis? I mean, where did this what got the thinking that we need a different wing? I mean, really, where did that come from?
Well, we were looking at the whole car and aerodynamics, not right then, but even right after that. At some point in my career, I've been in a wind tunnel with a top fuel dragster 3 times. I did it once in Canada and twice in this country, and trying to improve on the car to make it more efficient. And that will be either testing wings, the whole car, the aerodynamics. We even had a computer-based, we hired a aerodynamic guy one time to come, and he put a computer on the car and he put some wind pickup, little pieces of plastic tubing that measured the wind going by them. And he put it all around the car. We did different things on the car, tried tape things on, just trying to get readings off it, get like for the coefficient of drag and things like that. And we learned. You learn things, but the minute you do something, people, they see what you're doing, and then the next thing they're doing it too, and you paid the money to figure it out.
It didn't take long for the rest of the teams out there to catch up with you guys. I think by the end of the season, everybody was just about all wings, weren't they?
Couple races, everybody had big wings. The technology, the handwriting was on the wall. If you didn't, you're not too smart.
Well, it was the same thing with Bernstein when he came out with that wind tunnel tested body. And I don't want to make this sound negative, but I always thought that the Batmobile was kind of the end of funny cars that looked like cars. It sort of brought that to an end, I think. Yeah,
definitely. They let it get carried away a little bit. See, that's the to me, that's the downfall to a point of racing today. NHRA never controlled it enough to keep it under control. The tail was wagging the dog.
Yeah.
And it still to this day does. They still don't have a handle on how to keep the cost down. And through a fault, maybe not of theirs, the crew chiefs, they used to rely on try and get a team of, committee to try and figure, okay, we're going to only run this size blower, do one pump, one this, one mag. But then they can never agree to make it controlled. And now it's spiraled out of control where it's like ridiculous.
I had a long conversation with Carl Olson, and he called it rules creep. He said, it wasn't really anybody's fault. It was just guys trying to go faster, and the rules just kept creeping a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit here. And before you know it, everybody's running 330 miles an hour.
Yeah, exactly. And it's still that way today. Look at when they have some of these explosions, like this last season when they had, they're blowing the car in half, and just blowing the bodies off, and they're lucky nobody getting hurt. The safety stuff is really good, but when they have some violent explosions, when they blow up, there's so much nitro going in there, and it's like a big bomb. And when it goes off, it goes off.
Speaking of that, you just reminded me of something. Were you at the? I don't remember what the year was anymore, Joe. The year that Eddie Hill had those two explosions and he finally walked away from it. Did you witness that? Were you at the track when that happened?
Yeah, when he blew up big time.
Oh man,
I was at the track one time when his car, the nose collapsed, like the way they fold.
Yeah.
It was I want to say Sonoma maybe, where the track has the hill, and we just had run, and we were just coming back, and I turned around, and Eddie's sliding by me on the track in like a bobsled because the car was broken in half, and he's in there just sliding down with the car folded and all. He's had some crazy wrecks in cars and in boats.
Yeah.
He's like the cat with 9 lives. He's on number 8, I think.
Well, I don't know why that came to mind, but that I remember.
Well, did you remember when Doug Herbert blew up at Pomona on the starting line when the car grenaded before they had blower bags?
Yes, I do.
That was the biggest explosion I think I've ever seen, and it blew the blower over the bleachers, the blower case over the bleachers, which is like 300 feet at least.
Yeah. In
the air, and then people got in the stands, got stuck with some studs from the block, and there were like 7 people got hurt, and then after that they made the big blower bags, and the insurance made them put like a diaper on everything and go crazy. But that was unbelievable. That was years.
Well, I know when I ask people to ask intelligent questions, and I'm sorry to the Facebook member who I'm going to make fun of now, but he said, "Hey, ask Joe if he remembers signing my piston in 1988." And I'm like, I'm not going to ask him that.
You know how many pistons I signed? But the funny part, like somebody will walk up to you, like we've been doing a little bit of NHRA stuff the last couple of years. We did the celebrity race for Pennzoil last year with the Dodge Hellcats, and the year before we had the Toyota race with Bernstein and all them, and people will come up after all these years, and the guy will have a picture of you, of a little kid and you, and the guy said, "That was me when I was 10, and now he's standing there now, he's 50." They're like, that's how long ago you signed the picture from him. So it's funny, but that's when you're around long enough, you have that, but it's also neat,
That leads me to my final question here for you. What is it about drag racing, out of all the professional sports, that makes it so unique in that area, that you drivers always manage to maintain an intimate relationship with all of your fans? There's no other professional sport that does that the way you guys do. Why did you do that?
I think it started back when drag racing first started, because people were in pit areas, and they're right in the area where the fans were allowed to go. It wasn't like they were in like a NASCAR compound where nobody can get in the garage or anything like that. So it kind of exposed itself to the element of fans right from the beginning. And then people were selling souvenirs and burnt pistons, and also it's kind of developed that whole repertoire of being available. And then, once you got sponsors, you're signing handouts between races at the rope, and it just evolved. And it's still there today, thank God. 'Cause I think that's one of the reasons that has allowed the sport to exist and made some fans believers in the people and made some people heroes. That might be a weak link in a way. Well, NHRA didn't develop some of the fans big enough to be with the heroes.
Yeah.
You know, they kind of had a period of time there where maybe they weren't promoting the drivers enough. And I think they do it better and better now, but there was a period of time. So, you know, you're getting the changing of the guard when Prudhomme and Bernstein and some of the guys like that passed off. There might not have been some new guys that were built up enough to fill the bill for a while. Now they're starting to get the recognition they deserve, and it's helping maybe to build more fan base. But, you know, you have to do a transition. You know, when Yogi Berra, Mickey Mantle retired, they've got to have other guys they've been pushing to have them replace them. If there's nobody to replace them, you get a flat spot for a while, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's important to promote your stars. And I think they do it more and more now. You know, when they're going to drive, they show you pictures. And even though you're in the car, you know, they do things to make you available, I guess, to the public.
Yeah.
And that's important, you know? Let's hope they can pull it back and get some sponsors and keep it going forward. The TV package is decent these days.
Yeah.
If you know where to find it, you can find it on TV, and it replays itself a bunch. And it's, you know, just a matter of, you know, getting the sponsor money out there and make the racing competitive.
Well, you know, and with the fans, I mean, everybody that I talk to, everybody's got a story. Even I have a story of, you know, Shirley Muldowney being at a race and sitting on the back of her trailer. You walk up to her and you're having a half-hour conversation with her, and it's just such a unique thing in the sport. And it's what, you know, honestly, it's what really made me love drag racing at 8 years old. I walked up to Big Daddy at a match race, and he talked to me, and I couldn't believe it. Of course, I stood there, you know, and looked stupid and drooled on myself, but it was pretty neat. And it's one of the great things about drag racing.
I think that's good about people in general. If you treat people nice, they treat you back nice, and that's what makes life. You got to play it forward.
I almost forgot. I know you've told this story many times, but let's tell it again. What's with Snoopy?
Well, you know, going back to when I was racing, I was up in Minnesota, Brainerd, Minnesota, and some fans came around. It was a lady with a boy and a girl in a wagon. And they come down those days in Minnesota, you park, the pits were like there was a road. You could park along the road and some of the pit areas. So we happened to be along the road, and they kept coming by the trailer saying hello. And they were cute little kids. So my wife, we started talking to them, and one thing led to another, became friends. And then they gave me a pair of Snoopy underpants and the Snoopy decal to put on the car, because they were big Snoopy fans. So I put it on the car, and I wore the underpants on race day, and I won the race. So we're in the winner's circle, and I'm pulling down my fire suit, modeling my Snoopy underwear, and making a big deal. And it just started the whole thing going. And next thing, every car had to have a Snoopy something on it. And I started having Snoopy memorabilia around, and I started making T-shirts with a Snoopy on it, even though I wasn't legally authorized to do that. And so the whole Snoopy thing and then fans are bringing me stuff. I showed you, I have 50 Snoopy paintings on my wall over there in my basement. My basement's like a museum in my house. I have every parachute, every fire suit, every helmet I ever wore. I have 50 some Wallies. I've got pictures and collages of every race I ever won. So I'm a collector of racing art of mine anyway, and I have other stuff too. But that's made the Snoopy thing go crazy, and it went crazy. I actually had an 8-year-old kid write to Charles Schultz that it was my birthday and he wanted to give him something special. Charles Schultz made him a picture this big. It's on the wall over there. It showed a picture of Snoopy, Joe Cool. It said, "To Joe Cool, from Joe Cool, happy birthday." And this 8-year-old kid got Charles Schultz to make that for free and gave it to me at the birthday party. I mean, you know, and that's Charles Schultz. I even contacted him after that. I wanted him to do me a cartoon dragster, of my dragster, and he wouldn't do it. He said he only does stuff for charity or what he's going to sell, but he won't like do things private like that. Which that's what that was cool. But I mean, like, so you know, that's where the Snoopy thing came from. And like you meet people in racing. There's another fan who used to come around, a guy named Tom Alslip, and him and his son used to come, and we became friends with them. I used to get them tickets here or there. They'd come and help the guys put the canopy up and set the trailer up, and they'd stay after the race and help them take it down, which was a big help. Well, to this day, his son now has a job. He's older. He has a son, and he's racing junior dragsters. Oh. And the kid just started last year, and his father sent me. He's on Facebook, and I kind of saw what was going on, and I sent him, you know, some thanks and some this and that. And his father had me call him up one time and talk to him about driving and focusing and things like that. And the kid finally won some racing. He won the local championship in his class. I think he's 8 or 9 in this. You know, he won. So like, so, you know, you have relationships you build. That was 25 years ago, and it's still carrying on. You know, so you know, like life goes on. You know, you just play it forward and be nice to people, and you make the best of it, and it comes back to you all the time.
I think I've covered, Joe, just about everything that I wanted to cover with you. You got anything that? No,
well, hey, life goes on. I still work. I do commercial real estate, and I'm doing things like that. So I keep myself busy. I live in Florida in the wintertime, in Pennsylvania in the summertime. I travel like crazy all over. I'm traveling probably 100 days a year somewhere, whether I'm in Italy or skiing or somewhere. My wife, Andrea, we have a great life. And so we're good. I have good run. I'm still healthy, thank God, knock on wood. And hopefully that holds up for another few years. And so life is good for Joe Amato. I can't complain. You know, we just do what we do and keep trying to stay healthy.
I did read I think it was Competition Plus had an article on you that said you were going to try and, you know, travel the world and slow down a little bit. And I remember after reading it, I thought, Joe Amato, slow down. I don't see that happening.
No, I'm not slowing down. The funny part, people say, well, how do you control or do all that? I don't know. I just do it. You know, I've got like probably 10 different businesses I'm involved in, and it's just, my mind works. I'm always like full speed ahead, you know? So just keep doing it. I'm with people and helping people get going and all of the above, you know?
Hey, what year did you get inducted into SEMA Hall of Fame? Do you remember?
No. I was in the SEMA Hall of Fame. I think I'm in, I don't know, there's more than one Hall of Fame, like 3 or 4 other ones besides SEMA.
Okay.
Involved in, you know, Garlitz and the international motorsport, national motorsports, Italian American, the this, the that. You know, there's a lot of different brackets or branches of Hall of Fame things. Pennsylvania has a Hall of Fame, Sports Hall of Fame.
Okay.
So, you know, I was lucky enough to be in a couple of places, you know. A couple of T-shirts and a hat get you a lot of notoriety. You can bribe your way right in, you know.